Hello guys and welcome back to MonLabo Linux. So today we're going to be talking about meta argument, and on the meta arguments we have quite a few, but we are going to focus on a particular one, that is count. So we call that meta argument count, okay, or count meta argument. So here's the guy. It was introduced with the previous version of Terraform, okay, back in the days, but it was officially supported for module on Terraform 0.13, okay, because the other previous version could only be using count for resources. All right. So basically, when it comes to use count, we often compare it to for each, but they have very distant usage. Okay, so a given resource here, they put a note here saying a given resource or module block cannot use both count and for each. So you can either use one or another. Okay, it's not possible to use both of them at the same time. So the count meta argument has one object that is called index. Okay, and that index is there because when we say index, it means that we might have a list. Okay, we might have a list, and within that list we have objects starting from index 0. So index is usually the position, okay, from which the computer start counting. So we have 0, we have 1, we have 2, we have 3, we have 4, and so on. So index now will go and iterate through all those values, okay, all those positions. We used to have something called splat operator. We still have it, okay, we still have it, but you will use it in some circumstances. All right, so if you need something on it, please let me know so that I can do a video on it. So yeah, so as you know, count will produce a list, okay, and then from that list now, when it's going to create the resources, you will see object resource of index 0, of index 1, of index 2, of index 3, and so on. Okay, but they always start with 0. But we want to go ahead and see how we can leverage something like that to create some resources. So I'm going to go ahead and come here. So here I'm on my folder that you already know, okay, from my past videos, and I already ran Terraform init, Terraform validate, Terraform FMT. Okay, so on this folder, I want to use count. Okay, but let me show you first what happened when you are not using count. So if I was to do Terraform plan here, for example, okay, if I was to do Terraform plan, you will see that here is going to create two resources, and we are not observing any behavior on the resource themselves, okay, where you see, for example, bracket next to them with 0, 1, or 2. So you're not seeing anything like that. But what if I want to create, sorry about that, what if I want to create multiple resources, for example, okay? And usually count differ itself from for each when there are multiple resources of the same content that you want to create, okay, but you just want to individualize them by their name, by the name that hold those the content of those data, okay. So let's go ahead and see how that is done. So to use count, and we are going to do some troubleshooting along the way, so be ready for that. So to use count, you usually do count and then you put a number. For example, if I was to put 0, okay, let's see what 0 does. So if I was to put 0 and do Terraform, and this is where Terraform validate is really nice, okay. So if I was to do Terraform validate, what does it say? It says missing resource instance key. Okay, so here I have a problem, and the problem is not really because of this guy, it's because this guy is using something that belongs to this, and he has to respect a certain protocol in order to use that. So because local underscore file dot getting started, okay, getting started has count set, its attribute must be accessed on specific resource instances. So its attribute, these are the attribute references here, okay, argument references. So now we want the attribute called file name, okay. So to access that attribute, we have to respect a certain protocol because we are using count. Now, when you see here, they say, for example, to correlate with indices of a referring resource, use local underscore file dot getting started, and then you have to use count dot index. That is the only object that it has, okay, next to that resource. So now we are going to respect what they say. They say that when we call this, we have to use call count.index. So that's what we are doing. But now here, all right, let's see if Terraform validate is happy now. Oops, it is not. It says reference to count in non-count context. Yeah, computer always has something to say that we human being, we don't really understand. But let's go ahead and understand what's going on. So if you can see, we still have a problem on line 11, okay, and it is pointing at this. So at first we might think that there is a problem with this line, okay, but there is no problem at all. All right, so the problem here is that the count object can only be used in module, resource, and data block, which is exactly that. So we have a resource block here, right? And this is extremely important. Only when the count argument is set, okay? So the count argument is this guy on top here, for example. So they say that only when that is used, then you can use count.index. So it means that we can place that here, okay, and then we use count.index here, for example. But as you can see, we want to use that from where? From here. So we are going to copy this, okay. Oops. So we're going to copy this, okay, and paste that here. So now as you can see, I have count equals to 0. So now let's see what that will be. So I'm going to do Terraform fmt so that we get aligned. Okay, so now if we do Terraform validate again, okay, configuration is valid. What about Terraform plan? So if I was to do plan and type this, you will see that no resources will be created. But wait a minute, we say count, okay, 0. So what is happening? You should create something at least, right? You're probably asking. No. Here, when you say count dot 0, count equals to 0, okay, what it does is it can't go ahead and create anything because the count is 0. All right, so basically you are asking it to not create anything based on that count. So if the count is 0, count will not create the resource block will not create anything at all. It will remain empty. Okay, so now let's go ahead and see if by changing that we can create something from it. So if I was to put one here and one there and do this, oh, now I have 2 resources that will be created. But wait a minute, now you see what? You see the resource block with a bracket, which means that is a list where we have the first list as the first index as 0, and then the other one as well, the first index as 0. So what about we put 2 here, okay, and we leave, for example, 1 on this side. So if we were to do that, what happened? It's going to fail? No, it's not going to fail. It says it's going to create three resources. And then if we check here, we should see that we have index 0 here, and then for that's the one that we say 1 only, okay? And then for this one that we say 2, okay, 2 resources. Now you went ahead and say, okay, I'm going to create 2, okay? Because when you say count 2, it means that you have to repeat this block 2 times, all right? So instead of copying the same block and putting that into your file, you just say you're going to create that 2 times. So that's what it is doing. So it starts from the index 0, which is 1, index 2, which is the second time, index 1, that is the second time, okay? Now this is great. So it means that we can go ahead and create that resource, all right? But where I really wanted to take you is something that makes count really powerful. Usually when you are dealing with resource creation based on conditions, okay, based on Boolean. So what if you want to create resources based on Boolean values? Okay, for example, I will create this resource. I want you to create this resource only if this boolean is set to true or is set to false. There is no third boolean, right? Yeah. All right, so now what we will do, we'll go ahead and say that we want to use a specific value, okay? So if we say, for example, true, okay? So if it's true, we are going to use what we call a ternary operator, okay? The ternary operator here means that we say that this value, okay, this guy here, okay, this key here, we have its value based on the condition around true or false, okay? So if it's true, what do? We create a resource, one resource, for example. But if it's false, okay, else, if it's false, what do? We do not create anything, all right? So now it's going to go ahead and we're going to see what will happen, okay? So now I'm going to go ahead and do this. So if we do this Terraform plan, yep, it is about to create the resources, which is nice. What if this is false? Okay, what if that is false? So I'm gonna modify that on both sides. Now if I do type this, you see that the condition was evaluated to false, okay? Then it says, okay, I have no choice than going with 0 here. What about now making it, for example, if I want to do that for different environment, I need to put some kind of variable that has control on different environment. For example, in dev, I don't want to create any file over there, okay? And staging and production, I want to create, all right? So how do I do that? So I have to come here, for example, I will replace this variable, okay? I will replace this boolean by var dot created underscore local underscore file, okay? So I'm going to create a variable that will hold the value of the boolean. Now this variable, I copy that, I come here and then I say variable variable space, and then I will put this and I will accept the remaining because it works by what I want. Flag to create the local file, okay? So now here you see that the default value is true, all right? Which means that if I was to apply that without passing it to dev, it's going to take this default value and it will create the resource, but actually it is creating only one. Why? Because on the other one here it is false. But now we want to be able to do that as well here. Okay, so we're gonna do this. Let's copy that and put that here. Okay, let's do that. So now if we go ahead, we do this, it is creating the resource. Okay, that now I don't want to create that on dev, for example. All right, in the dev environment, we don't want to create that resource. So we come here, we type enter, and then we paste that and we accept false, for example. It looks like this guy is listening to me. All right, so now what happened if we do Terraform plan? You see that for both we are not creating anything at all because both of them were evaluated to false. Okay, this was evaluated to false. Okay, and he said that okay, I'm not going to create anything. All right, so this is how it works. Now if you want for the other environment, you can go ahead and do that. So if I was to do, for example, uh, Terraform apply. Okay, let's see what happened. Terraform apply dash auto dash approve. So it says that okay, it says that apply completed, but really nothing happened. Okay, it just created a state file with nothing inside. That's all. So there is only the output that was passed there. But now if you want to enable that back, okay, you can just say true here and then you type enter. All right, you see that now it has created. And if you put it to false, you come here, you type enter, it will destroy everything. All right, so what sometimes you might be confused like what is the real value here or whatever, but this initially when you place it like this, it means that hey, we want to check if this is true. Okay, then we're gonna go ahead and create a resource. But it may happen that sometimes you put it like this, okay, to say that if it's not true, okay, if it's not true, that means false. Okay, let's see what will happen. For example, actually it is false. So what happened when we put it like that? It goes ahead and create the resource instead. Okay, because we say that if it's not true. Okay, so here it was if it's not if it's the opposite of the value, okay, that is there. So if it's the opposite of the value that is there, then create a resource. Otherwise, do not create. So you see that it is true, it is false. Okay. Now this one here, this exclamation sign will set it to, we switch it back to true, and then it's going to create this resource. So if we do that here as well, and we do Terraform apply again, all right, you're going to see that it has created. So if you type again, nothing. Okay, but it happens that you also want to, for example, if I was to put it like this, okay, remove that, it happens that you are quite confused which value is that. Okay, that is coming from var. So you can say okay, if that variable has a value that is true, okay, like this, you can be very explicit. If it's true, go ahead and create a resource. Otherwise, do not create anything. Same thing here. You take that. Okay, let's copy that and you paste that here. So you do the same. So if it's true, go ahead and create. Otherwise, do not create. So actually, it's going to go ahead, see that var, okay, the variable is set to false, okay, which means that this condition will fail and it will get back to this one, which means it's not going to create anything. So let's verify that. Okay, so it is destroying. All right, it is destroying because the condition is false. The condition is false, which means do not create anything. But now if you say that if this is false, okay, and this one is false, go ahead and do the job. So let's see what it will do. All right, so this means what? The value which is here. So finally, the value of saying that what is the actual value here, okay, is this value equals to this one, which is true, right? False on the dev side, and false on the explicit value that we wanted. So if that value, okay, is set to false, if that condition when we check is set to true, okay, go ahead and create a resource. Otherwise, do not create. That's what we mean, right? But if you want to dis, uh, destroy everything, for example, explicitly, you can also do like this and say that, check the opposite. And what does it say? What did I type here? Oops, my goodness. Probably sure that you saw that, right? And then it's going to go ahead and destroy everything. So if you like the content of what you just saw, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, share with your colleague. Bye bye.